So Newbie peeps, what's up? It's me, John D. Villarreal, and I want to talk to you about this continuing series about why the GOP lost California and how we can fix it. I want to do this continuing series here looking at CD-11 versus CD-20 and Tom Del Beccaro's involvement in CD-11 and how that race appears at this time like it may very well be lost to the Republicans when we should have won, and it was one of the most targeted races in the country, and what happened and how David Harmer and Tom Del Beccaro lost that race, potentially. And again, all this is my own personal opinion. I'm not making factual allegations or casting aspersions. It's all for information on undetermined purposes only. So with that, let's continue. So what happened here in this race? Of course, a lot of people worked extremely hard. It was a very, very important race. I'm not trying to impugn your efforts. You didn't lose this race. Here's the deal. You're going to hear all kinds of things about how, you know, it's better than expected and you know, oh, this, that, and the other were the reasons why this race was lost. Let me tell you right now, this race was easily winnable, and we're going to show that by a close comparison with CD-20, where it looks like Andy Vidak won against sitting incumbent Democrat Jim Costa, and did so with far less resources, far less money, far less media and political help, and he did it with a much bigger margin in a district that is far tougher for a Republican to win. Again, we're just going to deal with the facts as we can know them or perceive them. So let's start with what was going on here. Now, David Harmer is a perpetual candidate. He's ran in Utah and lost. He ran in CD-10, where he actually lives, again in the special election against John Garamendi, and lost. He ran now in CD-11, where he doesn't live, and apparently has lost again. If you look at the history of at least his recent races in CD-10 in here, this is a candidate that always, in his campaigns, that always puts out that they're always leading, rah, rah, rah team, and then underperforms. Who's involved here? Well, Tom Del Beccaro's involved. Tom Del Beccaro and Brian Sussman and David Harmer were like this, peas in a pod. Who's Tom Del Beccaro's, for his, I believe, for his, this is what I understand, for his chairmanship run, who's his consultant? Tim Clark. Who's David Harmer's consultant? Tim Clark. Who is part of Harmer's campaign? Chris Del Beccaro. Who's that? Tom Del Beccaro's nephew. That's sort of interesting. So if you compare CD-11, that was, again, billed as the top targeted race, the most winnable race in California. It had +1 Republican registration. You had David Harmer, who raised here, by the FBC reports, you don't have to believe me, go on the FBC reports, it's all right there, $2.5 million. The same McNerney raised. McNerney only raised $2.562 million. And David, according to the FEC, actually spent more. He spent $1.945 million. And he was on KSFO all the time. He had Tom Del Beccaro all right there, all involved in him. They had all these volunteers. They had everyone focused on this race, the whole 9 yards. In a year when the Republicans won everything. And then you had all these other people that claimed that they were supposed to be so winnable, right? Let's contrast that now to Andy Vidak. Now, if you look at the votes here, let's go to the votes here. The final votes, as we know right now, there's a lot of absentees and vote by mail and stuff like that need to be counted, and David Harmer could end up winning this. I don't think that's likely, and I'll tell you why here in a second. The final votes, 100% of the precinct report, as we know right now, Wednesday, November 3rd, is Jerry McNerney, 82,124, to David Harmer's 82,003. David Harmer is losing as of right now. Now, they claimed, because I got an email from David Harmer today, that they were up on the vote by mail by 3%. So they had this edge, and the edge, and as his email goes on, the edge whittled down and down and down and down as the day went on. Cutting through all that, it simply means this: the early vote, meaning the vote by mail stuff that was done earlier, like a month ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, favored Harmer. As the vote got closer and the people, you know, were actually voting on voting day, that all favored McNerney. Don't have to take my word for it. Look at the numbers. And again, Steve Weir, who is the county clerk for Contra Costa County, basically said the same thing on the Contra Costa Times. Which means that all these, most of the vote by mail stuff, the outstanding absentee ballots and stuff like that, are all done with people dropping it off at the voting booth, day of voting, or were done a day or two before because those ones weren't counted. All the other ones, most of the other ones, as I understand it, are already counted, which means that what is left counted to be counted, and a lot of that, as I understand, is sitting in Santa Clara County and maybe Alameda County, which again went from McNerney, or all the late stuff. And that those ballots should actually be closer to trending with the day of the vote because they were closer in time. It's very simple to understand why that is. It's simply because the more people learned about David Harmer, the worse that he did. That's just simple. Or that McNerney's campaign somehow worked. Whatever any way you want to characterize it, that's, you understand what I'm saying. Now let's contrast that to Andy Vidic. Andy Vidic appears to have won in CD-20 against sitting Congressman Jim Costa. As of now, and again they need to count more stuff, well, 100% precincts reporting, Andy Vidic is up 32,531 votes to Jim Costa's 30,708 votes, or basically 51.5% to 48.5%. It's a comfortable vote margin in where obviously less people voted. It looks very likely that Andy Vidic is going to win. Now, he may or may not, but I think that he's looking pretty good there. Now, let's understand something. Yes, Andy Vidic eventually made the Young Guns, whatever like that. You know, he didn't have the media help. I don't know how much he was on the Big Talk Radio, but you didn't hear the, you know, national papers and, you know, writing about Andy Vidic and this and that, whatever. You didn't see anywhere close to the media coverage of Andy Vidic as you did David Harmer. How many times did Tom Beccaro go down there? Whose relatives were working for Andy Vidic? Whose relatives Tom Beccaro went to go work for Andy Vidic? How much money was the NRCC giving Andy Vidic? How much money did the Young Guns program give Andy Vidic? Now, maybe they gave him some because he finally made the program, whatever like that. You get the point. He didn't have anywhere near the help or anything like that as David Harmer did. Now, let's look at the money he raised. Andy Vidic raised $633,000. This is FEC reports again. Jim Costa raised $1.5 million. He spent $1.664 million. Andy Vidic spent $481,000. And again, this doesn't, you know, this is to through 1013 or whatever. Like, so, you know, there's that last minute stuff that could have adjusted. But basically, Andy Vidic was outspent 3 or 4 to 1. I'm sure that Andy Vidic didn't have anywhere near the coverage, the volunteers, the help, the whole 9 yards. Tom Beccaro, from my personal opinion, was personally involved and had his family involved in the CD-11 race. Now, if you look at, well, what about his, you know, what kind of registration do they have down there, John? Well, if you look at the registration in CD-20, I believe it has a Cook value of +5 Democrat, whereas CD-11 has a Cook value of +1 Republican. That means that Andy Vidic was at a registration deficit of about 6%. So he had 1/3 to 1/4 of the money as his opponent in terms of what was deployed. He was in a much less favorable district. He had much less help, and yet he won comfortably, whereas David Harmer looks like he's going to lose. You have to, there is no, in an election year where everybody should have won, and there's no possible way around that. You have to blame David Harmer, his campaign staff, and Tom Beccaro. There is no other way. And you have to say that Brian Sussman can't deliver any wins or any real effort or push for anyone either. He gets lumped in there too. And why is that? That's not fair, John. That's not right. Yes, it is. Again, reflexively, who would have gotten the credit if they would have won? David Harmer, candidate number 1. His campaign staff, number 2. Tom Del Beccaro, the chairman, who was involved personally, this and that, whatever, and then, you know, big meaty people, whatever, and, you know, which is, you know, Brian Sussman, and I guess you can throw in the President Tea Party there too, and Bridget Melson. Those are the losers. Those are the people, in my personal opinion, that ruined and wrecked this campaign. Because again, there was no outreach. I got no invitation. Dave Diamond got no invitation to speak at this Tea Party event over here. It was all talk to the hand. Well, they had it all covered. They didn't need us. And you have to, I mean, it basically, and let's talk about the Pleasant Tea Party very quickly before I get to that. I wouldn't even call it the Pleasant Tea Party. I would call it the Tom Del Beccaro Tea Party. Because whatever Tom wants, it seems like that's what they get. All of Tom's candidates and personal favorites, Tony Strickland, Mimi, they all seem to show up there. The ones that he doesn't have control over, whatever, you know, Meg Whitman, Fiorina, they just do their own thing or whatever like that. So, what's up? That team delivered a loss. It's very, very simple. So again, I ask you the simple question. Compare CD-11 to CD-20 and just be honest about it. Take all the personality out of it, take all the personal feelings out of it, just compare it on the numbers. Why did we win in CD-20 and why does it look like we're going to lose in CD-11? That's it. You know, and I would humbly submit to you, you can't win when you're benching some of your best starters on your team. You can't win when you pissed off a lot of our team, and that the people that were in charge of that race and in charge of the party down here don't know how to win. There is no other rational conclusion that you can come to. But I want to know what you think. Comments below, subscribe above. We're going to have a continuing series on here about why we lost in California and how we can win in California. I'm John D. Villarreal, and you're watching Conservative New Media.